When we ask whether atheists are more moral than religious people, the question isn't just about statistics or surface-level behavior. It cuts into something deeper. What really drives moral action? Is morality something handed down from above, or is it something humans create, negotiate, and live by together? At first glance, religion seems to present itself as the foundation of morality. Rules are written in holy texts, punishments and rewards are laid out, and communities are held together by shared belief. On the surface, that looks like a strong structure, but there's a problem hiding underneath. If morality only holds when a god commands it, what does that say about human beings? Think about it. If a person only avoids lying, stealing, or killing because they fear punishment after death, then their morality isn't really about concern for others. It's about fear and self-interest. That's not compassion. That's not empathy. That's calculation. And this is where non-religious approaches to morality start to stand out. Without belief in divine surveillance, people are forced to ask a different question. What kind of world do I want to live in, and how do my actions affect others? This requires genuine reflection, not just obedience. You can see this difference when you look at how societies evolve. Many of the most harmful moral codes have been justified with religion. Slavery was defended with scripture. Subjugation of women was protected by doctrine. Persecution of minorities was wrapped in sacred language. These weren't random accidents. They were justified systems rooted in religious authority. Yet when reforms happened, when abolitionists fought against slavery, when women demanded equal rights, when oppressed groups challenged injustice, those movements leaned heavily on reason, compassion, and shared humanity, not divine decree. Progress in practice often came when human values outgrew religious restrictions. So when we ask if atheists are more moral, it's not a matter of claiming perfection on one side and corruption on the other. It's about recognizing which foundation for morality actually encourages growth, responsibility, and care. A common objection comes up here. People say, but religious communities do enormous charitable work. They build hospitals, feed the poor, run shelters. And that's true. But the important question is, why is that charity happening, and what are its limits? Often, charitable acts within religious systems are tied to conversion efforts or to reinforcing belief. In some cases, help is conditional. You receive aid, but only if you attend a service, accept a doctrine, or participate in rituals. That's not purely altruistic. That's transactional. When people act out of secular compassion, there's no eternal scoreboard, no divine judge watching to hand out cosmic points. The motivation is different. It comes from empathy and recognition of shared struggle. The act of helping someone becomes meaningful because suffering itself matters, not because a god commands it. Psychologists who study morality often point out something fascinating. When people believe their morality is being outsourced to an authority, they actually think less deeply about right and wrong. This is called moral outsourcing. It's easier to obey than to reason. But blind obedience makes people capable of terrible things if they believe a higher power approves. History has no shortage of examples, from crusades, inquisitions, and witch hunts, to more recent extremism justified by holy texts. When morality isn't tied to divine command, the responsibility shifts. Every choice feels heavier, but also more authentic. If I lie, cheat, or cause harm, there is no escape into forgiveness from above. The consequences are human and immediate. I've hurt trust, damaged relationships, or caused suffering that I can't undo with prayer. This sense of responsibility often produces a more careful approach to morality, not less. Because when no one is keeping score for you, you have to live with yourself and the society you help shape. Another layer to this is how morality adapts to new knowledge. Religious morality tends to be static. It's tied to ancient texts and traditions written for very different societies. That's why you see endless debates within religions about how to reinterpret old rules for modern life. Secular morality, by contrast, is flexible. It can evolve with science, psychology, and social understanding. Take mental health. In many religious traditions, mental illness was seen as a spiritual failing or possession. That belief caused untold suffering. Today, we know it's a matter of biology, environment, and care. Secular morality adapts to that knowledge. It builds empathy through evidence. The same applies to issues like LGBTQ+ rights. For centuries, religious texts condemned homosexuality. That led to persecution, shame, and violence. But as understanding grew, through psychology, medicine, and simply listening to people's lived experience, secular morality shifted. It embraced dignity, equality, and love without needing permission from Scripture. If morality is about reducing suffering and increasing well-being, then being willing to adapt is essential. A morality frozen in time risks protecting harm instead of preventing it. And that's exactly the problem with moral codes tied to divine authority. They often resist change, even when change is clearly necessary for human flourishing. Here's something else rarely discussed. Studies comparing secular and religious societies reveal an interesting pattern. Countries with higher rates of non-belief, like Sweden, Denmark, or the Netherlands, tend to have lower crime rates, higher levels of trust, and stronger social safety nets. People in these countries donate generously, volunteer often, and report high levels of happiness. Meanwhile, highly religious countries often struggle with corruption, violence, and inequality. This doesn't mean religion directly causes those problems, but it does challenge the idea that religion is necessary for moral order. In fact, the data suggests that when societies become more secure, when education, healthcare, and social stability improve, religion declines, but morality doesn't collapse. It actually strengthens. That raises a tough question. If morality thrives without religion, what purpose does religion serve in moral life? The answer may be less about ethics and more about identity, tradition, and comfort, but that's not the same as being a reliable guide to right and wrong. There's also the issue of motivation. A religious person might say, without God, why would anyone be moral? But this question reveals a dangerous assumption. If someone needs a God watching them to keep from harming others, that suggests morality isn't internalized at all. It's fear-based. By contrast, a person without religious belief has to ground their morality in empathy, reason, and shared values. That's harder, but also deeper. When you help someone because you genuinely care, that act has no ulterior motive. When you tell the truth because you respect honesty, not because you fear punishment, that's authentic. Philosophers like Kant argued that morality should never be about reward or fear, but about duty and principle. Treat others as ends in themselves, not means to an end. In practice, secular morality often lines up with that ideal more consistently than religious morality does, because it doesn't dangle heaven or hell as bribes or threats. And let's not forget the darker side of divine morality. If a god commands something harmful, followers may believe it is automatically good simply because it is commanded. That's the infamous Euthyphro dilemma. Is something good because God commands it, or does God command it because it's good? And if it's the first, morality becomes arbitrary. If it's the second, then morality exists independently of God. Either way, divine command isn't a stable foundation. There's one more angle worth exploring: forgiveness. In many religious systems, wrongdoing can be wiped away by confession, prayer, or ritual. That may sound comforting, but it also weakens accountability. If someone believes they can hurt others and then be absolved by appealing to a higher power, what stops the cycle? In a secular moral framework, forgiveness isn't automatic. It requires real repair, apology, restitution, change of behavior. Forgiveness is not granted from above, but earned through human effort. That makes it harder, but also more meaningful, because it places responsibility exactly where it belongs. And responsibility is really the heart of this whole discussion. Morality without gods requires humans to own their actions fully. It requires building systems of justice, empathy, and cooperation without appealing to the supernatural. That may sound daunting, but the evidence shows it works. In fact, it often works better. So, are atheists more moral than religious people? The answer isn't a simple yes or no. Individuals vary. But when you compare the foundations of each system, one built on obedience and fear, the other on empathy and reason, it becomes clear which one has the stronger potential to foster genuine morality. At the end of the day, morality is not about what happens after we die. It's about how we live together now. It's about the world we create through our choices. And when morality is free from divine command, it is finally ours to shape.